right, so my name is Lisa Kelly. Welcome. I work with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. You'll see our logo on the bottom right hand of the screen. And the Ontario Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit network of over 157 local chambers of commerce and boards of trade. And our role is to provide, gather information, share that with our partners, write policy papers, advocate for businesses in Ontario to help them prosper and grow, and to create programs that do that. And Discoverability is one of those programs that we created to help our businesses find great talent. Interestingly, and again, if I can get everyone to mute, thank you. Interestingly, a lot of that talent is people with a disability. So we have a job matching platform and a community of users and participants who are called the Discoverability Network. And again, that's to connect employers with people looking for jobs who just also happen to have a disability. We host these weekly sessions, honest conversations that you can access through Eventbrite, in the hopes of engaging you, providing you with tools, resources, giving you a network where it's safe to have honest conversations around topics related to disability and employment. And I'm delighted that today we're going to be talking about mental health strategies for the workplace. Now, if you want to follow us, we will be sending out this very short deck, but it will have all of our links. So Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We also post these videos on our YouTube channel, so you can access the recordings at a later date. Before we start, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement, because even though we are meeting virtually, we do owe a debt to the people who have cared for these lands since before we arrived as settlers. So we'd like to acknowledge that the work we do takes place on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. So welcome, and thank you to them for caring for these lands. Today, I'm delighted that we have three amazing presenters from the Canadian Mental Health Association and the Durham Recovery College: Kristen Bellows, a peer support specialist; Candace Singh, an adult educator; and Marie Logan. Now, Elizabeth Novak, can I ask you to introduce Kristen?
Yes, certainly. Just give me 1 second to get the necessary information.
Actually,
so, Kristen Bellows has a Bachelor of Social Work and Adult Education certificate. She is an adult educator with the Recovery College Wellness Center at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Durham, and teaches classes such as DBT skills, group, and creative writing. Kristen uses her lived experience with mental health issues to create a unique and safe space for her students to learn. She enjoys reading The Color Purple and is left-handed. Well, that's quite interesting. And I've heard Kristen speak, and she's absolutely wonderful. So thank you for joining us, Kristen.
Okay. We also have two additional speakers. So I'd like to introduce Candace Singh. Candace has over 6 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector, and she's working, addressing the employment and social needs of diverse groups of people. She has an honors Bachelor of Science, and she recognizes that employment is a key social determinant of both physical and mental health. She believes that some of these key components of addressing the social determinants of health are education and accessing effective community supports, such as employment services. Candace is currently pursuing a Master of Education, and she believes that mental wellness throughout the reemployment journey is an important factor to achieving employment goals. So welcome, Candace. Elizabeth, if I can get you to also introduce then our final presenter for today, Marie Logan.
Absolutely. Marie Logan has been working as an adult education for 15 years. Her focus has been in nonprofit employment, corporate training, and she's recently moved to mental health education. Marie holds a Bachelor of Arts degree and a post-grad certification in teaching and training adults, along with other designations, including personality dimensions, level 3, and soft skills solutions. She has extensive experience training diverse groups of people and continues to seek out exciting opportunities, with her most recent adventure managing the Recovery College Wellness Center at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Durham. With a flair for the dramatic and a love of all things that sparkle, Marie is grateful for the opportunity to participate in the learning journeys of her students and colleagues. Welcome, Mary.
Great, so we'll turn it over to you three. Jeff, if we can put a spotlight on our presenters, over to you.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. So today we're going to chat with you about mental health strategies in the workplace. And this is our agenda. So we'll do some we had some lovely introductions. Thank you so much for that. We'll go over the objectives, and Kristen, Candace, and I also have some fun facts about ourselves that we can share. And then we'll dive right into things. So we're going to start with return to work considerations. So we're going to look at things like data, tools, and suggestions on helping folks return to work after being on leave. And then Kristen's going to share with us Accommodations 101, some strategies and types of mental health accommodations we can have. And then Candace is going to share with us workplace wellness. So putting things in place that will help hopefully prevent or mitigate some leaves of absence that might be related to mental health. So if we have a healthy workplace, then hopefully we can avoid situations where people are too stressed to come in, right? So here's our objectives. Okay, so you will be able to, by the end of this session, so by 4 o'clock today, you'll be able to identify elements of a return to work program that accommodates for mental health. You should be able to plan effectively for a return to work post-pandemic. I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. You will be able to explain how mental illness affects the different domains of a person's life, list different mental health accommodations, and sustainably promote wellness in the workplace. So we're presuming that you're going to be able to do this because we can't actually assess it in the next coming hour or so, but these are the things that you will be able to put into place once you've completed with us. So once again, just to recap, my name is Marie. I'm the team lead, and my dream job is to be Cinderella at Disney World. Because when people say, what do you do for a living? I would be like, well, I'm Cinderella, who are you? So that's always been my dream, although I feel like I might be getting too old to be Cinderella and I might have to now be her stepmother. I will let Candace and Kristen introduce themselves.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Candace. I am an adult educator here at the Recovery College with Canadian Mental Health Association Durham. And because the job of Cinderella is already taken, I will go with my dream is to inspire others to promote health in their jobs. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kristen. Basically what I put on the slide, I already put in my bio, but I really am working my dream job. And then just a different little fun fact, I have 2 little boys who inspire me to raise them in a way that will definitely help them emotionally and yeah, be good men when they grow up. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, ladies. All right, so let's dive in here. So return to work, affectionately known as RTW. I want to take some time to review some best practices and offer some tools to help you in 2 areas. Looking at having staff return after being on a leave because of mental illness. And as the world starts to open and we look to get back to some sort of sense of normalcy, I think this is a great time to touch on implementing mental health practices as we return to work post-pandemic. I'm sure we're all sort of in the same boat, getting off at different ports in relation to that. So to begin with, what is a return to work program? A return to work program focuses on finding meaningful and suitable work for the person that's coming back. You're always collaborating with them, and the goal is usually to return the worker back to their pre-injury or pre-illness job as appropriate. And we want to do that in a timely fashion, right? Because time is money. It's important, no matter what your return to work program is about, that you're always focusing on the assets and you're not focusing on a diagnosis, okay? So it's always an asset-based approach. And you're communicating throughout. So the details, you're respecting confidentiality, but the details of the return to work program need to be communicated to the people that are going to be affected by it. So that is obviously the worker who's coming back, but also their teammates that need to be in the loop. You want to do this openly and share what everyone's role is going to be and the expectations surrounding them, because we don't work in silos, right? We work in conjunction with others. So loop people in as appropriate and when you can. Is there a difference between return to work programs and mental health return to work programs? The short answer is no. Okay, so the guiding principles are always the same. You're focusing on functional abilities of the worker. You're not focusing on those symptoms or necessarily the causes. If you already have a return to work program, you don't need to recreate it, okay? You just need to make sure that it's inclusive of mental health or mental illness. And again, we're going to review some of that stuff for you today. And something that we do a really great job of, especially in Ontario, is focusing on those physical hazards that are associated with our workplace. We do a lot around that. We've got lots of standards and legislation and committees, right, that we're all part of. What we need to do is also start focusing on those psychosocial risk factors as well. Those should also be part of our health and safety that we explore. So when you have someone who's coming back from a mental health leave, you want to take into consideration that folks coming back from mental health leave may be experiencing a few things that might be different from those who typically come back after an injury. So these could include, but they are not limited to, feeling like a bother to others, feelings or fear around rejection, potential harassment, stigma that is often associated with mental health, and of course, feelings of shame and isolation. Okay. Something else you want to consider with this sort of thing that can be very delicate is considering how the absence is going to be explained to the folks that are still in the workplace. Physical injuries are obviously very easy to sort of notice or be aware of, but mental health ones, not necessarily so. Okay, so definitely thinking about how the absence is being explained and what level of information needs to be shared with the team involved. So when people are coming back, who should be part of the planning, right? A comprehensive return to work plan will involve at least this many people. Okay, so we've got the worker coming back, we've got their immediate manager, hopefully we've got some human resources in there. I know not everyone has an HR department, but whoever sort of acts as that HR representative. And please involve those healthcare professionals. Anyone who's been on leave is obviously connected to some sort of intervention. So work with the healthcare professionals that they've been working with. They'll have lots of really great insight. Okay, so each of these people, each of these parties has a shared responsibility in making this a successful transition back into the workplace. So some general steps, okay? And we talked about this at the top. You're looking to complete a functional abilities assessment or a fit to work form. This can be done internally. It can be done with healthcare professionals like an occupational therapist. And this is where you're going to determine what meaningful and suitable jobs and or tasks are going to look like. So that's where you start. Then you need to create a plan. And this is as detailed as you can make it, right? So it's going to include milestones in terms of dates, time, tasks, expectations. And throughout this, you are discussing this plan with the worker that's coming back. And you're asking them if they anticipate having any challenges or issues with the plan. Like any disability, you need to follow the person with the disability's lead, right? So the same is true with mental health, follow their lead. This is also a really great opportunity to fill them in on any organizational changes that might have happened in their absence that they're not aware of. Okay. As they transition into the workplace, there should be some sort of checklist. This keeps everybody on track. It's going to help you on their first day, on their second day, on their third day. And you want to remember that they're going to have those first day jitters, right? So treat it like it's the very first day that someone is starting a brand new job. Okay. Involve the team. So let the team know that the worker's returning. This helps them to welcome the person back and help you set up any retraining that might need to happen. Be available as a leader to support the team, and be sure to monitor for gossip and other kinds of behavior that could lead to stigma. And then that leads to an unsupportive environment, and that's not going to help anybody. Okay. We suggest that you review the plan after the first 2 weeks. So this is going to help ensure that everyone is on track, and it's going to assess if any other accommodations might need to be put in place. And then you're going to agree on set intervals where you and the worker can review and gradually increase to full duties in whatever timeline you agreed on. Some general best practices that you want to keep in mind as you plow through this. When someone goes off, you want to stay connected. Okay, so identify who the most appropriate person is that's going to stay connected with that worker that's off. It should be someone that they have a good relationship with. So this could be a supervisor, it could be a coworker, it could be a union rep, could be someone from HR. What you want to do is make sure that the worker understands that this is standard common practice. So whoever's off on leave, there is always someone who's going to stay connected to them no matter what. Be kind. Patience is key when we're trying to communicate. And it's definitely going to be difficult for staff when they first go on leave to communicate, because they're obviously going through something very difficult, but they will come to value that interaction as time progresses, because the goal for them is likely to also go back to work, right? Like, we don't want to be off forever, unless of course we're retired. When you are interacting with them, avoid questions that could be interpreted as investigative, and instead just offer to be of assistance. Share updates about what the organization is doing, and try not to make them specifically about this person's job, okay? Because if you're telling them about what's going on at the organization, you're going to help them feel connected without adding stress, okay? As the worker starts to feel better, feel free to start inviting them to work functions as they transition back. So little celebrations or fun events that you might be hosting, send the invite. They may not be able to come, but it's nice to send that invite. Yeah. If you acknowledge physical injuries with things like flowers, get well messages, greetings, please extend the same sentiments to those off on mental health leave as well. And of course, plan for their return. Definitely consider any recommendations from healthcare professionals. Okay, don't feel that you have to do this in isolation, because you don't. And basic things that anyone can expect when someone's coming back would be a slow start, gradual increase in hours, flexible schedules to accommodate for potential appointments, medication side effects. And then of course, please pay attention to energy levels and assign work accordingly. And always, always, always involve the worker in whatever information they wish to share with the team. Okay. So Kristen is going to spend lots of time reviewing some accommodations, but these are some things to keep in mind when you're assessing and determining the skills necessary to do a job well. And accommodations may need to be created around any or all of these items that I'm going to share with you. So you're thinking about adaptability and flexibility. And this is about the ability to work effectively in the midst of changing needs, changing conditions, and changing work responsibilities. Attention to detail. This is about the ability to perform work tasks that require significant attention or understanding. So the person coming back may not be able to do that very well. Decision-making could be impacted. So do they have the ability to analyze problems, organize information, and resolve issues or generate solutions? Okay. What sort of degree of self-supervision is required in this new workplace or in their job as they come back? Can they work effectively without supervision? This includes working remotely or when someone isn't available to supervise. The degree of supervisor responsibility. So if this is someone in a leadership role, can they effectively come back to that? Are they able to respect organizational values and policies? Okay. This is a big one. Exposure to confrontational situations. People have to learn how to manage their triggers, but this can be a very triggering event. Can this person effectively work well when confronted by an individual or when encountering confrontational situations where they might need to take action? Okay, so something to think about as you design and redesign their role. Exposure to distractions is a big one. Can they work effectively in the presence of visual, auditory, distractions, right? That's, what sort of environment do they need to be effective to concentrate? Another big one is stress, so their tolerance of stressful environments. Can they work effectively in a stressful environment, which may be caused by workplace processes or physical hazards like noise, lighting, scents, chemicals? All of those things can affect their stress level. Exposure to distressed people. So can they work with individuals who might be emotional about something, right? Whether that's in person, over the phone, and other communication channels. Okay? Big emotions can be triggering. Overlapping tasks, right? Which many of us call multitasking, which none of us really do very well. Okay, so do they have the ability to perform or monitor more than one task or function at a time? And can we identify when tasks or functions require attention? So can they prioritize those things? Problem solving and analysis. Do they have the ability, the confidence to effectively solve problems and analyze situations for information? And their ability to recall and retrieve on demand information that they've learned previously. And so all of these are puzzle pieces that we need to be aware of. And there's more. So we've got things like time pressures. Can they work inside quick timelines? Can they manage their time effectively? What are their working relationships like? Do they have the ability to work well? Can they collaborate, cooperate with different levels, depending on who they're interacting with? Physical demands are always something to look at. Their work endurance. Can they perform tasks for long periods of time? Do they need to be broken up? Can they work regular work hours? Does it need to be rotating? Perhaps previously it was an overnight shift or an on-call shift, and their medication doesn't allow them to do that anymore because it affects their sleep cycle. Looking at a degree of isolation, okay. Can they work without regular contact? Can they do this over technology or infrequently? How are they feeling about face-to-face? Okay. The next thing to think about, because as I said, we don't work in isolation, and people will see accommodations, right? So this is about managing coworker reactions to accommodations. So what does the coworker know or think they know about the situation? So even with confidentiality, many people hazard educated guesses about what's going on, and people may be reacting to myths and stereotypes of an illness with discomfort or fear. So consider if there's a broader need for mental health education and awareness. Okay. What has the coworker experienced that may be impacting their concerns? Okay, there might have been conflict prior to the worker going on leave, or if there were prior performance issues, maybe that's a concern coming back. Are they worried about having to share job tasks or responsibilities? And have they had to actually fill in for their colleague up to this point? Okay. And how do they feel they might interact with the employee going forward? So they might feel uncertain about how or if they should approach their colleague. They may anticipate that the returning worker is feeling shame or embarrassment or fear, and that can certainly complicate interactions. So what do we do? Okay, well, the first thing is address the concerns and the fears. Okay, so investigate the validity of those fears. In many cases, the fears are unfounded or exaggerated, but the impact is real. So unfounded fears can be addressed through education. If you find a degree of validity, this is a really great opportunity to create plans, safeguards, and processes to alleviate and or minimize those risks. Okay. You also want to be clear about inappropriate behavior. Mental illness or not, violent, threatening, or harassing behavior is never acceptable. So co-design, right? So work in collaboration with all the staff about identifying a specific and measurable list of what behaviors cross what lines. And I just want to make a note here that people with mental health issues are no more likely to be violent than anyone else and are significantly more likely to actually be victims of violence themselves. Okay. So I actually have a video to share. I'm just going to make sure I share my sound. Okay. So let's see. I might actually have to like stop share. Find this. Oops. Okay. Share this back up. Here we go.
The single biggest productivity hack of 2021. It's this Google Chrome extension.
To me, the value of work is gigantic because it gives me purpose, it gives me regime, it makes me get up every day, and it swipes the cobwebs out of my mind. It keeps me busy. There's always that chance that a reoccurrence of symptoms could happen. So I would probably lay out some sort of game plan, and I think that vice versa, they would want some kind of game plan, what to look for, and what kind of, what do I have set up as in terms of support. It would manifest in ways in which I think, for myself, I mean, I would be probably scattered, nervous, and distrusting, because due to having schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of bipolar and schizophrenia, people who suffer from schizophrenia do have tendencies to distrust and to be fearful of things around them. So I would probably not be as interactive with people and definitely fall more into my quiet and into my own head. Being in services in retail where it requires you to interact with people, that interaction would stop. If a manager was to notice that somebody on their team was struggling, I would hope that they would reach out to the services and information that is out there, and perhaps get in touch with a professional, a doctor, or any of those services that are offered in the community, and reach out to them and say to them, you know, this is the scenario. I have somebody on my team who is experiencing mental health problems, don't seem to be aware of it. What would be the best method for me to help them? If I was starting to show symptoms, hopefully it would be before things got really out of hand, because then it's hard to have that insight when you have schizoaffective disorder because of the lack of reality that starts to take over. So hopefully it would be caught early enough, and I think it would actually just remind me that yes, this is happening. People close to me, my coworkers, employers, are noticing something, and it's time for me to reach out to healthcare, doctors and such.
Okay. So you want to also communicate your plan for addressing bad behavior. So make sure everyone knows how to report inappropriate, like aggressive or antisocial behavior, to management, and management should know how to respond. You also want everyone to have a right to a safe workplace, right? So staff need to know that their safety is paramount. This includes having policies, procedures, and processes that are in place to help ensure their safety. Okay, so I have another video for you from David, who's an employer. So give me 1 sec and I'll set that up. Mhm.
If I'm talking to a prospective new customer, one of the questions that they'll have for me, if I tell them, you know, we'll be using a team out here who have lived experience of mental illness, how would, they ask me, how would that show itself, display itself to me on the, if they're working in my backyard or on my property? And the answer is that when you're employing somebody that has a lived experience of mental illness, there's very little chance of there ever being a display of violence. There really is. The team members that we have are managing their mental illness. That's the point. When you start to go back to work, you are managing your mental illness and you're ready to get back to work. So our function is to provide an opportunity to employ someone after they've had a period where they've obviously been through a tough time and they've had professional help, but now they're ready to get back to work and they're managing. So when they come to see us and we have an interview, we're very we're very open about, okay, can you manage this? Can you manage that particular job? Are you sure you're comfortable doing this? And an employee will hopefully be honest and say, yeah, this is the kind of job I want. Sometimes people do exaggerate maybe what they can do, but that's okay. It's never been my experience that we've ever had anyone show any signs of violence of any kind to colleagues or customers on the job. And I would say that there's no more chance of that occurring with our team members than there would be in any other workplace. It would truly be an anomaly. I've learned a lot from working with the teams that I have. They teach me every single day that I'm on the job. So you're going to get as much back from your employees as they're going to get from you if you do this right. It's definitely a rewarding experience.
Okay. Then we're looking to address all the other issues that might come up. So you want to try to address existing hurts, misunderstandings, preconceived judgments or fears. Offer, and these are good practices to do anyways, right? Offer regular training around your bullying and harassment policies. If the workplace environment is generally one of chronic stress, tension, chaos, anxiety, then you need to do some work around addressing those organizational or systemic issues, right? The team could be impacted by having to take on additional workload, so certainly involve them as much as you can so they feel a sense of autonomy. Resentment can grow. So when a coworker has to take on or correct someone else's work, and this can be more harmful than if we had assigned the task or to the task that was originally assigned in the first place, right? So you have to sort of balance which is the lesser of two evils. So discuss with the returning worker if they anticipate any negative reactions from colleagues and what sort of alternatives they could help provide. Everyone has a duty to be professional. So this means refraining from harassment and discrimination. It doesn't mean that you have to be friends, but it does mean that you have to be professional, right? And allowing problematic behaviors for any reason has the potential of harming the mental health of everyone. And this includes having to replace the returning staff, right? So, yeah. All right. I'm going to slip into returning to work as the pandemic eases. We can all likely agree that the pandemic has done a number on everyone's mental health, and it has certainly been the great mental health equalizer of the century. And as we start returning to the workplace, employers across the globe, and certainly in Ontario, are going to have to manage the anxiety and likely, in many cases, the depression of their returning workforce. So let's take a minute to unpack some of this. So here's some stats for you, for those of us who like stats. In May of 2021, a public opinion poll by CMHA Ontario showed that only 1/3 of Ontarians, so 35%, consider their current state of mental health as very good or excellent. That is down from 52% recorded in May of 2020. And more than a quarter, so 27%, are using substances to cope. So something to consider. rates of stress, anxiety, and depression during the pandemic are also worse than ever, with nearly 80% of Ontarians expressing the belief that we will be in a mental health crisis post-pandemic. That's a lot. So in the beginning, we thought this was a short-term situation. And 2 years in, we're obviously still struggling. And in the beginning, we had clear directives. And as the pandemic progressed, those messages became more complicated. And now we receive mixed messages daily around fluctuating case counts, vaccine accessibility and hesitancy. We've got lots of mixed messages around job security, job changes, and mandates in the workplace. And then the constant opening, closing, reopening, reclosing of the economy, right? On that constant repeat loop. We've got safety concerns in the schools and in childcare centers, and that doesn't even take into account retirement homes and nursing homes. And all of these things make it very difficult to concentrate on work. We're already dealing with complex emotions related to how to survive financially, emotionally, psychologically through a healthcare crisis that none of us has experienced before. So this is, I don't know if any of you remember the commercials from the 90s. This is your brain on drugs. This is your brain on COVID, okay? So COVID is a constant stressor, okay? So, and by constant, we respond to stress in one of three ways: fight, flight, or freeze. And we've been in those constant states for 2 years, right? And now we're having to shift from surviving a pandemic to thinking about how to survive going back to work with people. Okay, so if you know, 75% of our brain has been focused on worry and confusion and uncertainty, we don't have a lot left over for motivation and focus or coping. So we need to set the stage. Proper leadership practices will make it comfortable for staff to disclose their mental health and or addiction-related difficulties, okay? And we're all gonna anticipate that that's gonna be happening, right? So we need to create a culture built on trust, honesty, and fairness. And when we do this, people will then feel safe and able to bring their concerns to management, whatever those concerns might be. We need to focus on psychological health and safety in our business planning. So consider workspace processes, policies, and procedures, and think of them through a mental health lens. And then we need to respond effectively to mental health concerns. So this means you need to meet people where they're at. You need to include them however you can, whenever you can, in developing solutions that fit their needs and the workplace. We want to avoid imposing a solution or perspective, okay, or prescriptive plan. So 1 in 3 professionals currently working from home would look for a new job if they were required to return to the office. Hi, Chihuahua. So with that in mind, here's some questions that you can ask yourself. Have you tried to create an atmosphere where folks feel comfortable asking questions and sharing concerns? Have you created opportunities to co-design those solutions? Have you strived for flexibility for those returning to meet their current needs and circumstances? Have you created a system to track requests and concerns and communicated the steps you've taken to address them? Have you had employees submit information reasonably required to help you make formal accommodations? Have you asked how you can help? Have you created a protocol for any staff that are unable to return to a physical workspace? Have you ensured plans and policies identify employer duties as well as duties of employees? And have you clearly communicated them? When you're speaking with your staff, okay, bringing them back, build trust. Okay, trust is an emotion, right? It's not a skill. Trust is an emotion. So you got to work hard, got to put in the work. And you can do this through integrity and confidentiality. So share information about your plans and progress, constantly request feedback, share your own concerns and how you're personally coping, be relatable. Make time to talk, encourage people to connect with each other and with you. This helps people feel that they are not alone in their concerns. Encourage participation, okay, so that co-design. This builds buy-in and accountability. You might want to put together a committee. Maybe you want to circulate anonymous surveys, okay? Get them to engage. Be specific when sharing your plans and provide as much detail as possible. Staff are going to feel safer when they know the specifics. Respect privacy. So ask whether there are any problems interfering with work or if they are able to perform all the essential duties of their job. Okay, so make generalized questions around it. Educate. Just because you might get it doesn't mean that they do. So make sure everyone is educated on mental health concerns related to COVID and how to access supports. Be positive. So consciously creating morale boosting measures and opportunities is really important. So look for ways to have fun together. And be proactive. Take the time to talk about the importance of mental health. Understand that you are an integral part of an informal support system. And please acknowledge loss and grief, right? So people have experienced tremendous loss, not just of family members, but also existential loss, right? Loss of relationships, loss of freedom, loss of faith in governments and healthcare systems. There's been a lot of loss. And in order to move forward, we need to honor and validate those feelings because they're all profound. And understand that this is an investment, right? So Deloitte did a study that showed that for every dollar you spend on mental health initiatives in the workplace, there is $1.65 in return on that investment. So how do we do this? Don't do it alone, okay? There's a national standard for psychological health and safety in the workspace, and there's a supplementary piece to the standard called Assembling the Pieces, and that provides you with the tools and information that you need to start the implementation process. So we will provide you with a handout that will have a link to both of those things. Okay, the Mental Health Commission of Canada has invaluable resources and trainings. Tap into them. Here, of course, local CMHA branches, okay? They may offer something called the Mental Health Works, and this is a program that offers tailored capacity building workshops and consultations to organizations looking to improve or protect the mental health of their staff. It also comes with an accommodation guide for managers and for staff. And please don't forget to take care of yourself, right? That age-old thing, you can't put on someone else's oxygen mask before you put on your own, right? So you are no good to anyone if you are also unwell. So take care of you using these 6 domains of wellness. Practice mindfulness. I know it's a buzzword these days, but it works, right? build a support network for yourself. Tap into other leaders who are also facing similar struggles, okay? You're going to learn from each other. Build a team. When you are bringing people back into the workplace, tap into everybody's leadership. Everyone is a leader in some way, shape, or form, so tap into them. And communicate intent, not task. Trust that people are going to show up and rise up, especially if you've done everything up to this point with compassion and in good faith. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to be lost. You are only human after all, okay? So focus on, go out in nature, okay? Eat well, exercise well, access support, psychological, psychiatric care, right? All of those things. I'm finished. I'm happy to answer any questions up to this point, if there are any. I have not been monitoring the chat. Do we have any questions?
I don't think we have any questions in the
I
chat.
I see
do
one
have a
person with a
raised
hand up.
hand, yeah.
Yeah.
Dee, do you want to unmute and
Yes.
Jeff, can you unmute Dee and she can ask or he can ask the question?
Yes, it's she. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you so much for the information. It's very beneficial. And thank you. I was wondering, again, was two things. If we can get slides of the presentation. And I want to find out more about the return to work plan and how involved, again, should we be with the employee, or how involved should the employee be with the employer as far as the return to work program work?
Yeah. So we'll certainly make the slides available to you, and in the handout that we'll give you there are also resources, including how to like put together an actual return to work plan. But you should already sort of have a program ready to go. And then when you work with whoever's coming back to work, you can manage that relationship. So you need to know what you need to do as a business, what needs to be happening. And then you work with that staff member coming back to figure out how that's going to play out and what other supports might be necessary. So what other staff members might need to be involved to help make that happen. But you want to include that worker as early as possible because it's dependent on their ability to come back, right? So I would include them as much as possible, as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. And
We had sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. And how much information can we share with their work environment regarding the employee? Surely we don't want to violate, too much.
Yeah, so you definitely want to make sure that you're following Privacy Act. But you also want to be upfront about expectations from the people around. So it's definitely good to consult the privacy policies and the act for Ontario. That's where I would start.
Okay.
And again, having those conversations with the worker who's coming back and saying, look, the team needs to know stuff because they need to be made aware of things. What information can I share with them and follow that person's lead because it's ultimately their information, right? So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Marie, we had a few other questions. Can you define mental health? And we have the question, is anxiety and depression part of that?
Sure. So mental health is a catch-all term. And when we talk about mental health, we're talking about it just like physical health, right? So, and everyone's mental health fluctuates. And there's no normal, there's a baseline for each individual, but there's no such thing as normal, right? So when we talk about mental health, we're talking about how connected we are to being well, being motivated, being present, being able to take care of ourselves, being able to take on responsibility, and that kind of thing, right? But there's no.
So I put in the chat, would this be fair? Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being.
Sure, yeah. And whatever that looks like for each individual. Yeah,
Yeah, and it affects how we think, feel, and act,
absolutely.
and interacts with stress in particular, and definitely mental health includes anxiety and depression. We had another question just before we leave for a break.
Sure.
What does management do if the member goes off and does not disclose their mental health issues?
Yeah. So I would assume that when someone goes off, there has to be some sort of medical documentation.
Yes.
Yeah. So whatever the doctor's supplying, that's what you know, right? As an employer. So that's what you're going on. And it is fair to assume that anyone, if they go off on a physical leave or like because of injury or because of a mental health thing, that mental health is going to be affected no matter what.
Yes.
So if you can look at things through the lens of, is this person's mental health going to be taken care of as well, to the best of your ability? You are not solely responsible for the mental health of your staff members. They are also responsible for that, but you have a role to play. And you're balancing lots of plates because you have to take care of the business, and you have to take care of the clients or the customers, and you've got to take care of the staff. And so you can't do it all yourself, but assume that everyone's mental health is going to be impacted by any kind of leave.
Great. And last question, then we're going to take a break. I know we've got tons of questions in here, which is such a good sign. What do you do when you have an employer who is not respectful to coworkers or people's experience? Maybe they're being intimidating about it or condescending. Any advice on how to address that?
I think education is really important. And Candace and Kristen are going to share some resources around both of those things. But it comes from the top, right? So if you are in a space of leadership, then people will follow your direction and your lead. If you've got someone who's creating a toxic environment and you have the power to correct that, then absolutely do it. And then maybe have tough conversations around, this might not be the right place for you, right? Don't be afraid to make those tough decisions.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to let everybody take a break, but just one more comment on the whole idea of what people do or do not need to disclose. Mm-hmm. So it's up to them. They do not need to disclose a diagnosis, and they do not need to provide medical details. So they could simply come back and tell you, I have a health condition. Here's what I need changed or what I'm concerned about in the workplace. That is all that they need to share with you. Now, if you as the employer have further questions about, well, how do I do that? How much of whatever needs to be changed? Then you can ask for more information from the person so that you can provide what's called the accommodation. Or in some rare cases, you may reach out to a medical professional. But at no point are you entitled to a medical diagnosis or private information. So I just want to really make that clear. So this is really a conversation that should be productive between you, who wants the employee back, and the employee who wants to come back.
Exactly. Yeah. Remember at the top, we were talking about, this is about assets, right? And it's about what you can do. It's not about diagnosis. It's not about injury. It's about what are you able to do in this moment, and what are you able to do in 10 minutes from now and in 10 weeks from now, right?
Exactly. So I'm going to give everybody a 10-minute break. We're going to give our speakers a break. We're going to give our interpreters a break. So we will convene at 2:10. And thank you, Marie. That was excellent.
More than welcome. Thank you.
Let's get started. I just wanted to ask the host if there's anything that you wanted or any questions that sort of that came up over the break. I'm just taking a look at the chat here. Okay, I think if any other questions sort of come up, feel free to post that in the chat or raise your hand, and I can certainly answer those. It looks like most of them were sort of logistical questions. Again, so welcome everybody. Welcome back. My name is Candace, and I'm going to be talking or really tying everything together at this point. So I'm tying up all the pieces and talking about promoting wellness in the workplace. So something you can really start today in creating the environment for a strong return to work plan and a comfortable set of accommodations. Really, I know I was really excited about that question that came up about creating a safe space. So this is giving you the tools to create that space that's welcoming of wellness, okay, and encouraging of wellness. So another thing I wanted to point out is that all of the tools I'm telling you today or giving you today are absolutely free. Okay, so these are things that I know that our businesses are at different stages, and small businesses, you would, especially after a pandemic, you want to consider expenses. So good news, there's really no cost to any of these things. Okay, so why should we do this? Did you know that the CDC has determined that it will cost companies approximately $602 per employee per year due to workplace stress-related absenteeism? In the grand scheme of things, this doesn't seem, like a huge expense, but that's only the expenditure. So the cost of the companies, not necessarily in relation to the productivity. So it says here, loss of productivity due to stress-related reductions in employee functionality reduces company profits. This is overall company profits by 150 billion US dollars per year. That is a lot of money to be lost as a result of, really this reduction in employee functionality because your workplace isn't fostering or creating a space that promotes wellness. Okay. So how do we solve this? It's a pretty big problem. Well, that saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So in other words, if we tack on a dollar amount to this, it's about 300 billion US dollars annually that go into companies, that go into pockets, according to the CDC. Okay, so really promoting wellness aside from the fact that, we want to create a good workplace, everyone, it does certainly benefit both parties. It's a win-win. And I do want to say congratulations to all of you, because this is really the first step. The fact that you're even attending a workshop like this tells me that you're really making the effort to make your place focus on wellness, and you care enough about your employees and the employee satisfaction in your workplace. So aside, really promoting a healthy work environment and a place that focuses on wellness will not only keep more money in your pocket, but keep things going sustainably. And aside from that, it creates a space for yourselves, right? So as employers, like Marie mentioned before, a healthy workplace doesn't only impact your employees, it absolutely impacts you as employers too. Okay, so taking care of both parties here. So all of the things that I'm going to present here are absolutely applicable to both the employer and the employee. Okay, so take care of you as much as you take care of your employees. Okay. So what does this look like? Okay, so I have this laid out kind of funny here. So it says no cost wellness promotion strategy. It's really a positive approach to mental health in the workplace with the help of CRAP. So I want you to remember this, and remember this, in terms of, really, if your employees are feeling a crap, let's use this as a reminder and a cheat sheet for CRAP. So what does that even mean to us? Well, under the C bit, connect. Keeping employees feeling connected is certainly a tool that's going to enhance wellness. Then we move on to rest. So we want to encourage employees to rest and relax. I feel like I'm saying the 4-letter word when I say the word rest, right? It's pretty wild that there's so much stigma around it, or so much thoughts or negative thoughts associated with the idea of rest. So why not bring that to the workplace and remind ourselves that we are human? The next piece here is activate. So let's think about ways we can stay active together with our employees. And I will talk to you about that in a lot more detail, because I want to place a lot of emphasis on the together piece. Okay, so let's stay active together with the employees. The last piece here of our CRAP model is think ahead and prepare. Okay, so prepare, think ahead and help employees feel prepared when times get tough. Okay, it's normal for workplaces to go through these like cyclical phases where things are going to be very stressful and inherently so, maybe times of the year where it's the year end and things are due, or you have large projects to be working on. But the more we prepare our employees, the better the outcomes are in terms of wellness. So let's get some of your feedback. I'm curious to see where you're at right now. So how do we stay connected? How do we keep our employees? What are you doing right now to keep your employees feeling connected? Or are there any ideas on, before I give you some, on how we can keep our employees connected? You can go ahead and raise your hand or post those thoughts in the chat. And again, there's no right or wrong answer here. So I'm the more creative, the better. What are some ways we can keep surveys? Okay, what do you mean by surveys? Are these engagement surveys to see how employees feel about things that are happening? Yes, okay. Offer to have a virtual coffee, and I'm really happy that you've offered a virtual service. So I really like that you've tagged on that virtual piece, because many of us are working from home, right? We do inherently feel disconnected. It's an environment to not connect. So I'm excited to see that you've added that virtual piece. Monthly check-in meetings, okay. Wellness games, yeah, that's what we do, Marie. We do wellness games through our employee wellness. We actually had a company Olympics, like a workplace Olympics, where we were popping balloons and all kinds of stuff over Zoom to build teamwork and that connectiveness. What other things can you do, or what other things are you doing right now? Sending a self-care package. Okay, Irina, I'm coming to work for you. I see that. Self-care packages are great. Jocelyn said offering to start a wellness committee. Yes, engaging your staff in wellness committees, right? Who better to share their voice than those who are going to be served? Staff outings. I love that, especially now that things are opening up. Team building activities, setting goals and sharing them with others, with each other. Yeah, I like all of those things. So some of the suggestions I'm saying, wellness challenges. I like that. That's cool. Let's see if there's any more thoughts here. Okay, so some of the suggestions around how to keep your employees connected. One is check in daily and make it fun. So remember that work, unfortunately, we spend a lot more time at our jobs than we do with our own families. So if we can remind ourselves that our staff are humans, and set aside that 15 to 30 minutes every day, if you can, for a team huddle or check-in, and involve questions like, what did you do over the weekend? Welcome your staff to share pictures and stories and whatever it is that they might be passionate about. So engage the outside world into the inner world of that employer sort of piece. So reminding ourselves that our staff are human and bringing that into the workplace too. Seeing in the chat too, acknowledging what's working well and also being realistic, not avoiding the stuff. Okay, so that's certainly relating back to that preparedness arena. So we'll definitely talk about that too. Another suggestion is encouraging a safe space that challenges stigma. So we talked about this a little earlier. What does it mean to have a safe space? Well, just exclusively talking about mental health, asking everybody, hey, let's do a stress check-in. How are we feeling right now? Asking people that ahead of a very stressful situation. Maybe you know that it's the year end and there's lots of deadlines and lots of things to consider. So encourage a stress check-in. And I think another really great thing in terms of you as an employer, especially for small businesses and large businesses alike, but this gives you a nice feeler as to what's going on and how you can improve along the way. So if we implement stress check-ins either weekly, even if you'd like to do it daily, this can certainly help you to it's not necessarily a formal survey, but it can be a survey tool for you to determine where your staff are at right now. Okay, what's happening right now? If 90% of your staff are reporting that they're feeling really stressed out as the office opens up again, as people are being called back into the office, consider that, and you can certainly adapt to that. So it's not a surprise to you when, say for example, many of your staff decide to call in sick, okay, because they're not feeling their best in that moment. So certainly implement stress check-ins and create that sense of, again, humanism. that in the workplace. So this one I really like. So this was an idea that a lot of companies are using right now. So pick a TV series, pick something on Netflix. It seems like everybody has Netflix right now. Pick a TV series and watch it together. Okay, it doesn't necessarily need to be, or even find something on YouTube, a series on YouTube, and watch it together. Use a show that everyone's watching as a good way for people to connect with one another. So this might be a really great way to say in the mornings at your check-ins, hey, did everybody see that episode? Or say, weekly, hey, what did you think about that? So just to start conversation, and it's certainly it's certainly something that we can laugh about and create that sort of balance when it comes to workplace. It doesn't necessarily need to always be so professional in the workplace. So there's a podcaster that talks about this and says that her name is Gretchen Rubin. So Gretchen Rubin says that, a lot of people really, staff tend to say that they're happy in their workplace based off of their relationships. So strong relationships in the workplace lead to happier staff. Okay, so try and create that workspace, or remind yourselves that, again, we are humans and we have lives outside of work. Okay, celebrate things. So set aside some time each month to celebrate your company culture wins and celebrate things in general. So I put out here, teaming days don't have to be expensive or complicated. You could even have something like a potluck, okay? And that would be a really great opportunity. Say, for example, you have team meetings. You can make your team meetings certainly potlucks if you'd like. That's just one small suggestion. I know that sometimes you're working in the virtual world, even like a lunch and learn together, but give employees the opportunity to explore and learn other roles as well. So not only connecting, each other, again, connecting that out, your outside life to the inside world here from the employer perspective, but also giving employees the opportunity to explore internally. So I think when it comes to a lot of corporate environments, it's very easy to blame other departments and to compare other departments and not quite understand. So giving employees the opportunity to explore and learn about the other roles, to break down silos, can certainly build connectedness too. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily need to be your own little team as the only piece that's part of the connection, but certainly understanding the bigger picture and the importance of each player on the team. Okay, so if you are part of a larger organization, encourage just days where you can kind of walk into the different floors and explore what it is that another team is working on. Okay, so understanding the in and outs that way. Certainly you can use apps. Okay, you can use apps to do challenges, like staying healthy challenges, encouraging meditation. Really, these are win-win situations, and encouraging staff to get involved that way, which we'll talk a lot about when we come to the activate piece. Okay, so you can certainly use technology to help you stay connected, and then seeing that a lot of you are using that. So using those Zoom meetings, those Zoom coffee time, that's a really great suggestion. Okay, so let's talk about the next piece. How about rest? Okay, my dreaded 4-letter word here, right? How about rest? So what are you doing right now to encourage employees to rest? Are you doing anything right now? So, and how can you encourage your employees to rest? I'll take a look at the chat here, or you can raise your hand. Interesting. This one's really tricky, right? It's hard to encourage employees to rest, especially when productivity is what you want, right? You want employees to sort of have their stuff done, and you trust them to take their rest when they need it, okay? But not necessarily the case. So I'm seeing in the chat here. Oh, okay, great. Don't check emails. So I'm guessing that's, don't check emails on certain times. Not contacting them on vacation and days off. That's really great. Yeah, certainly not allowing a vacation to be a vacation and a day off to be a day off. Okay. Closing the office for an hour at lunch. If you can certainly close, that can certainly foster connectedness as well, because typically you'll eat lunch together. Okay. That's something that we implement here at Canadian Mental Health Association. Okay, Encouraging employees to use their vacation time. Yeah. So as employers, I think it's also something to remind yourselves too that employees have earned really their vacation time too. So, let's not only promote wellness through vacation time, we're going to we're going to create a space of wellness. Okay. We're creating an environment, that safe space, an environment of wellness. Seeing, yeah, don't contact after hours. Yes, for sure. Okay, no emails after hours. So I'm seeing lots of no after hours. I think this is a really hot topic right now because of the pandemic, right? We're seeing people working from home, and the lines there's a lot of blurred lines when it comes to start times, end times, and we're seeing people get really overworked because really there's nothing else that they're doing outside of work, with everything being locked down. Now is different. Things are sort of opening up, but we were seeing that. Surely, I'm taking a look here. Remind them of their family members and animals at home waiting for them. Yeah. And yeah, remembering names of family members. This is about reminding ourselves that, hey, people are people outside of work. This is only one small aspect of their lives. And how kind it is for you to remember the names of their family members, right? Isn't, or even the names of their pets. Like I don't have any kids, but I have a dog who I love and talk about all the time. So when the team members ask me how Charlie is doing, I certainly give them a whole backstory with a beginning, middle, end, a climax, and all of that. So and it makes me feel really good. Don't make big changes or decisions when someone's off. Yeah, that's really considerate. So making sure people are involved, and that's certainly going back to connectedness piece, making sure that everyone's involved in decision making, especially big decision making. Okay. So let's talk about rest. This one's really is really interesting to me because I think depending on your company structure or your workplace, the hours might vary, right? So, we're really sort of working around this. So perhaps you have a night shift or whatever it is that your workplace might need. Please encourage your staff to take breaks. And that might mean if you find that your staff are not taking breaks, that might mean that you need to implement a break hour. Okay, so saying, between this hour and this hour, I don't expect any work done because we need to take a break. Okay, because it can be kind of, especially when staff are in a momentum, it can be kind of hard to just pull them away so that they can take their break. But we really need to encourage them to shut their computers down and just relax for that bit. And even encourage, if they can take that break, to step away from their desk to do so. Okay, so that we start to really create the same way we try and create a bed space where we sleep. We want to create a space where we rest. Okay, so step away from your desk because your desk is not associated with rest. So you're not going to actually feel rested. Okay. Another thing is, I want you to, in terms of employers, I really want you to consider what it is you're reinforcing. So encouraging workers, or I will say, so toxic productivity is not sustainable. So remind yourselves what behaviors are rewarding or reinforcing. If you have an employee of the month program or whatever it is, remind yourself what might have gotten that employee there. And if you find that they are overworking or putting in extra hours in order to be that employee of the month or employee of the week, we need not necessarily reinforce this, right? We're creating now a culture of toxic productivity, and this is actually counterproductive. Okay, we're rewarding behaviors and reinforcing behaviors that do not promote wellness whatsoever. So you as an employer needs to sort of regulate this and also be a role model for what it is that you're asking your staff of. If you find yourself working, 20-hour days and not getting enough sleep and burning the midnight oil and coming to work burnt out, you are certainly going to create that, or certainly going to be that role model for your staff that this is what they expect. Okay, so certainly do that. I'm seeing in the chat here, offer self-care days. Yeah, I know at Canadian Mental Health Association, we certainly don't call them sick days. We call them wellness days, for the reason that you can take it for wellness, right? You can take your day off and use it as you wish for whatever it is that helps you feel well. Okay, so lots of ideas around that, but I really want you to consider what it is that you're reinforcing, because that can certainly help to determine if you are running a workplace that is promoting of wellness. Okay, this one's really fun. I like this one. Activate. So let's see what your ideas are. How do you help your staff to stay active together? This is not only physically, but also in the community. So when I say activate, it's really doing things together or doing things out in the community, doing things in general. So what is it that you're doing that activates your staff? Take a look here. Okay. Some of the things that you mentioned before sort of overlap here. I'm curious to see, I'm seeing some messages pop up here. Yeah, offer to pay a gym membership. Yeah. Get them involved in volunteering. So you'll have a small team. Yeah. What a great way to get your business name out in the community, and showing the really great work that you as a business are doing, by also volunteering. So it's a win-win, right? We're getting our name out, it's promotion, and it's also volunteering the time. And certainly reward your staff for that, right? We want to reward our staff. We're not going to ask them to put in, a lot of extra free time and ask them to really work for free in the sense. We want to create an event out of it and make it as fun as possible. Okay. Teaming and planning days. Yes, certainly. Teaming days are really great. That this is also in collaboration with that connectedness piece, right? Where if you're going to have a team meeting and it's going to be all day, you might as well make it fun, right, and get them outside. CN Tower climb, that's really great. So there's a lot of there's even virtual there's a lot of virtual challenges right now too, where you walk the equivalent of the of a mountain. For example, you'll walk the equivalent of Table Mountain in South Africa. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily need to be, maybe in the same space or anything like that. It can certainly be virtually done or done independently, but the idea is that you find ways to collaborate and get them active outside of the workplace. So here are some suggestions around it. First, encourage group activities. So share moments of achievement and encouragement from one another to increase the collective ability to succeed. So you can make use of apps for this. So you can certainly create challenges and celebrate holidays. So we've done at CMHA, we've done walking challenges. So we want to create teams. So we get to choose our own teams, and our teams don't have to only be the direct team that we work with, but we certainly can incorporate teams of other or individuals from other teams, and get them involved in the walking challenge. And the idea is to walk the farthest collectively together, right? So you're tracking your steps, if that's something you can do with your phone and sending that in. That keeps people active physically and certainly active together. Okay, so for example, you want to walk the height of Mount Everest together. Okay, so this is a really great way to promote wellness at work. Being active in the community, like you mentioned before, so having your team engage in the greater good. One of the really cool things is if you try to connect the service or product that you are offering. So if you are selling something or whatever it is, the message, your main message of your company as an employer, try to connect that to the social need that you're filling. So for example, if you're running a restaurant, you might want to consider inviting staff to volunteer, and you are joining them as well. So we don't only ask our staff, you as an employer are going to join them as well. And invite staff to volunteer their serving or cooking skills at a local homeless shelter. Okay, so kind of connecting the imagery here, or connecting the grander purpose. So not only is this a great way to build morale, but it's a really great way to contribute to society, and it's a fantastic opportunity to get your company name out in the community. Okay, if you can donate, I don't know, if your company has the capacity to do this, if you can donate and give your staff recognition for their community service, that's always a great thing to do and a great addition. So the last piece of our CRAP model here is the prepare. So this one's really, I think that this one's theoretically straightforward, but it tends to lack, right? Especially when things get busy. So it says here, think ahead and help employees feel prepared for when times get tough. So how are you doing that right now? So first question, do you have any busy times of the year for your business? And how do you prepare your staff for those busy times of the year? Let's take a look here. How do you prepare your staff for busy times of the year? Or do you prepare your staff? Thanks, Marie. Marie's saying provide reminders and deadlines well in advance. Yes. Is anyone doing anything to prepare your staff? That's really interesting. Bringing treats. It's a peace offering, right? Okay, interesting. So I'm now starting to see some messages come through. Yeah, so Kristen's posted too, ensuring there are enough staff on the day, i.e. having more staff around Christmas. Yeah, adding more support. Encouraging to take vacation before busy times. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, we can certainly, I don't know the nature of your organization, but that can certainly be something that might work for you. Bringing energy drinks, as bad as that is. Yeah. There's a lot of really interesting things around. I mean, again, these are all subjective in terms of what your workplace sort of does. But ideally, what you want to do is touch base with your employees, right? Certainly keep them in the loop as to what's going on. So there's a TED Talk, and it's called How to Stay Calm When You Know You'll Be Stressed. It's by a neuroscientist named Daniel Levitin, who discusses how you're not your best when you're stressed. In fact, your brain is involved over time to release cortisol in stressful situations, right? We know this, which inhibits, so cortisol actually inhibits rational, logical thinking. But it can certainly help you to survive. So for example, if you're being attacked by a lion, the cortisol will kick in, and it'll only keep the things that are the survival techniques or the survival cues alive, but it'll certainly sort of inhibit everything else. So there's really a way to work around this. So to avoid making critical mistakes in stressful situations, and avoid your thoughts being clouded, the idea is that you want to think ahead. So you know that it's going to be, this might be a little bit of extra work on your end as an employer, where you start to plan out your year, okay? Where you certainly lay out the calendar of the year and mark off some major deadlines, okay? We might visualize what will happen. Maybe you run a report. So maybe, like Kristen mentioned, Christmas might be a busy time for you if you're selling something, and you run a report. Hey, perhaps the 21st was the busiest day in the Christmas season. I want to certainly support that with additional staff to make them available. So this takes a lot more planning on your end and a lot of communication. So communicate with your staff. Hey, March 30th is coming up, and that's the deadline for the submission of this. Where are we at with this? So really checking in if you've given them a deadline, and also preparing them for when times get busy. So this can look weekly. So perhaps you're reviewing the week with your team at check-ins and preparing staff for those challenging times, or maybe your staff know better, right? So perhaps they've observed, hey, Boxing Day tends to be a really quiet day for us. Perhaps we can plan for, I don't know, Easter amongst that time, right? So we want to sort of give ourselves a lot of opportunity to not be surprised and overwhelmed. And also the process of saying to ourselves, hey, this is going to be a busy time, can certainly help you with that too. Okay, so the more planned you are, and the more prepared you are, the more planned and prepared your staff feel, and the more supportive your team can be of each other. And this looks, maybe your one staff member knows that during this part of the year, they go through, maybe they go through psychosis at a typical time of the year, right? And that might be certainly helpful for the rest of the team to be aware of, so that they know how they can support their other team members. So this is fostering connectedness. This is creating that sense of preparedness, and nobody's surprised when they're called to action. Okay. I'm seeing Okay, I'm seeing some comments in the chat here. So stress happens when there's no end in sight. Let them know when there's an end date. Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that. But let them know the end date is, and give them the no of the carrot at the end. Okay, so reminding them that there's a holiday or a party or some sort of celebration, and celebrate that. If you have something really big that you're working on and you finally complete it, celebrate that. What are you doing to celebrate that? Okay, to foster that connectedness. Okay, and just lastly here, just a nice summary of everything that we talked about. So again, this is the crap model. So if your staff is really feeling like crap, these are all the things that you can sort of remember or remind yourself to engage your staff in and reevaluate. So this could certainly be an evaluation tool of the services or the environment that you're creating. Is your workplace an environment for your staff to feel connected? Is your workplace an environment? Are you encouraging, as an employer, are you encouraging your employees to rest and feel their best selves? Are you engaging your employees? Are you allowing them the space to activate? And that's within the communities as well as amongst each other. And then lastly, are you preparing your staff and your team for any sort of times that get tough? Okay, so this can certainly be used as an evaluation tool as much as it is a piece of advice. Okay, and that's it. Are there any questions really? I'm done a little bit early here. I'll keep an eye on the chat.
That was excellent, Candace. Yeah, so if anybody has a question, you want to raise your hand, or you have a comment, we've got a few moments. I think people love getting their time back. That's a mental health relief sometimes as well. So. All right, well then, thank you. I'd like to thank our ASL interpreters, Dean and Vanessa. Thank you so much. And I'd very much like to thank our guest presenters today, Marie Logan, Candace Singh, and Kristen Bellows. It's, oh, Dee has raised a hand, so let's go to that before I sign off.
Hi, how are you?
Fine,
thank you. Thank you for taking my question. I have a question regarding the mental health professionals. How much contact should your mental health professionals have, or should they have in the work environment with employees and the employers? Should they have any contact with the employer?
I think I just need, Dee, can you give me a little bit more context on that? So are you connecting like employees? Are you actively, you as an employer, connecting employees with mental health professionals?
Not just the service, but that actual mental health professional coming into the work environment, if they're actually treating someone in that. Would that present a conflict of interest, I guess I'm saying? Let's just say if person A is getting treated by a therapist, and person A's therapist comes into the work environment and is engaging with other employees within that environment. Is that okay?
I'm gonna pass that off to Marie, because there's a lot of managerial things there, and then I will certainly follow up with something.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have some concerns. I would, I would obviously make accommodations for folks who need to meet with someone on the premises, but I would like to create a private, safe place for that to happen, because I don't know that everyone wants their business sort of hanging out. And I believe there would be professional sort of understanding that mental health professional is there to treat one particular person. If they would like to sort of share their skills or the resources that they have, then maybe you invite them to come to a meeting of some kind where there's some sort of lunch and learn, and they can learn about this kind of service. But I, as a manager, would definitely not want to sort of cross those lines, but you also need to know what your policies and procedures are around all of that stuff.
The reason why I ask is because let's just say it's a store, which this is actually a case, a store where the employee was receiving mental health services, and the person who was providing the mental health services was a customer in that store, engaging with other people in the store.
Yeah, so there's lots of sort of ethical dilemmas happening, right? Yeah. So the number one thing that we keep in mind when we do ethical dilemma sort of navigation is do no harm. So if you always have that in mind, then that's where you come from, and keeping relationships on the right relationship lines. So if I was that mental health professional, I would actually question and say, because I'm a patron of this place and because I know you in a different capacity, I don't know that I would feel comfortable being your mental health professional because I know you in a different context. So I might actually recommend that employee actually meets with someone who is not me. Yeah.
Marie, I think this is Lisa again. I think some of these topics, because they're so specific to circumstances, it's really difficult to give a rule of, a thumb, but there's ethical issues, which are one thing, and then there's legal issues, which is another thing. So, if you suspect it's going into the legal, you need to search for legal advice. If it's ethical, you can address it to the practitioner who's coming in or bring it up to your senior management. But I think that's really dependent on the company, the exact circumstances of what's happening. So it's really difficult to comment.
And I understand. I'm not trying. You're right. It is, because it is something specific. And I don't want to pull you all into a situation by no means. And you're absolutely correct. I just was thinking just like an overview of that interaction. I was just wondering, just in general, but you're right. I don't mean to bring it to the table because I do know, because it is specific. It could be.
I think it's a really valid question. I'm just not sure, given that none of us have direct experience with it, we can really give you guidance on that without fully knowing the circumstances.
Right. Okay. And thank you. I appreciate your answer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for asking.
Sure. No problem.
Candace, there was a question, I believe, about if, I'm going to laugh every time we say this, if like the CRAP method applies to like stressful jobs, so like soldiers, high-level sports, construction.
Absolutely. So certainly this CRAP method can be applicable to any space. It's up to your interpretation, what you might feel is more appropriate to keep your employees connected, what might be appropriate for your workplace to encourage rest. For example, at CMHA, we probably aren't going to encourage taking naps on the job, but I know that there are hospital situations where there's 24-hour staff and they have a room for people to go and take a nap. So it's going to look very different depending on the workplace, but all of the concepts are still very valid in the sense that these are pieces. If we look at it in the grander scheme of things, these are pieces that help you to feel human, right? That help you to address many different aspects of your social ability, or your, like the idea of being human. You need to connect. We're social beings. You need to rest. It's normal, and it's actually biologically necessary to rest. Feeling activated or enhancing your wellness, whether that's physically or staying active together in the community, can give you a sense of fulfillment, right? So we're looking at a sense of meaning and connecting the dots where you start to not see the mundane or get burnt out in that sense. And feeling prepared can certainly alleviate or address any stress responses. So I hope that answered your question.
Can I add to that as well, Candace?
Yeah.
I'm just even thinking like soldiers, high performance athletes, construction, you tend to be working as a team and you need to have a certain level of trust and just cooperation with each other. So like my husband used to work at Heights. So there needs to be trust that everyone around you is aware of all of the same safety measures, that someone has your back if something gets weird. So yeah, just keeping all of these guidelines involved will definitely strengthen the team that you're building. So not even just like individually, but it'll strengthen the team, because in a lot of these high stress situations, you really, really need to have that trust amongst your team.
I think we'll close out with that. If you have questions, we can forward them to our guest speakers, if that's all right. We'll be sharing out this deck. We really appreciate your time. I encourage you to follow the Canadian Mental Health Association Durham Recovery College. They're excellent. We really appreciate this in this series. I believe you'll be presenting again, Marie, you and your team, during Mental Health Week, and that will be for people with disabilities and particularly students. So good day to you all, and thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.